Something about it seems warm and old-fashioned, just like Christmas should be. We're talking Newhart. Hit it. It was 1982. The Canada Act was signed. Plaid pants and action suits were all the rage. Survivor released Eye of the Tiger, and Bob Newhart was back on TV playing a Vermont innkeeper. I'm your host, Jerry D., with another episode of Totally Rad Christmas, the podcast that talks all things Christmas in the 80s. Toys, movies, specials, music, and fads. If it was gnarly during Christmas in the 80s, we got it covered. Now joining me is a Totally Rad Christmas all-star. You'll know him as the host of the Christmas Clatter Podcast, Todd Killian. Todd, how's it going?
Going well, Jerry. Going well. Thanks for having me back, man.
Oh, it's always a blast having you on. So yeah, anytime you want, you keep coming back.
Oh, but I will. I'll be back next week.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, for real. But, yeah, we got a lot of stuff to cover, you and I, and we'll throw Michael in there as well, and we'll get some Magnum PI covered, and who knows what else.
Yep.
But yeah, so life treating you okay?
Going well. Got the kids back to school. We're not having to do much of that remote learning or anything right now. It's still on the table in case things go sideways, but
yeah,
got the kids back to school. We looks like we have the starts of an early fall too, the way the weather has changed here. So very rare, but I will take it. So
nice. Yeah, we were expecting lows in like the 55s, and then all of a sudden, I guess the cold front didn't get quite as low as they thought it was gonna. So our lows are now in the 70s.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'll take lows in the 70s any day.
Yes. It's always this time of year. It's like even when it's like 85 and it still feels warm, it's like you just kind of get that irritated. Like, I'm just tired of being hot.
Yes. That's exactly right. Yeah, I want the color changing leaves already, man. Come on.
Yes.
So Newhart, what are your overall thoughts? Like, what's your history with Newhart?
Newhart was one of those shows that came on, and we've talked about this before in the past, is one of those shows that my family did not miss.
Gotcha.
And I remember watching it as a kid and just like loving it, but I kind of got all the big jokes and all the slapstick jokes, and I remember my dad specifically just literally cackling at the show, and it was just one of those shows that we did not miss, and we looked forward to it week after week because it was so well done and so well written. And Bob Newhart is probably, the more I think about it, preparing for this episode, I think Bob Newhart is probably one of my top 5 all-time comedians.
Nice.
I just love him so much. I had the privilege of being on Christmas Past with Brian Earl.
Mm-hmm.
And we covered Dean Martin Christmas special from 1968, and nice. Bob Newhart had a sketch in that. It was the best part of the whole show. Was Bob Newhart, and I laughed at that thing so much. And he's been, he had the Bob Newhart show, which I watched on Nick at Night, and I loved it. And of course, Newhart, I watched it live, and then then all his different various appearances here and there. He's just a treasure that I don't think always gets the credit he may deserve as a comedian.
Yeah. I love his delivery. It's always like just so deadpan.
Yes.
He kind of stutters a little bit and mumbles, but he gets it across.
Yeah.
And it's just something about his face. I think because no matter what he's doing, he always looks kind of so serious.
Yes.
When he's saying all these things. He's like the straight man, but also a comedian at the same time.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
and he gets that real uncomfortable feeling too at times.
Yes.
When someone says something awkward or uncomfortable, he kind of gets that uncomfortable feeling.
Yeah.
And we'll get into it more, but this episode, I'm a big Office fan, but watching the dynamics of this show, I'm for those that don't know, it appears that most, if not all, the episodes of Newhart are on YouTube, and I'm definitely going to start taking a deep dive because this show its writing and the delivery of Bob Newhart really reminded me of The Office quite a bit.
I could see that. Yeah.
And so definitely this was, I don't want to jump too far ahead. This was 24 minutes and some seconds. That is very worthwhile.
I completely agree. And I was actually the same. We watch Newhart every week, and same thing. I wasn't quite old enough to get all of the jokes, but there was still quite a bit that I loved. I think my favorite bit was always Larry and his brother Daryl and his other brother Daryl.
Yes. Yes. I remember, going to school. That was like the running joke. I remember after that first episode aired, we go to school. And of course, back then there was only a handful of networks and people still watched the major 4 or 3, I guess. And the Fox wasn't around then.
Yeah. And
so you'd watch the big show and then everybody would come to school, saying all the funniest jokes. And, Larry, Daryl, and Daryl became, it became a saying or a slogan. You go to the dry cleaners or something, and he'll say, "I'll just take this back there to Larry, Daryl, and Daryl." It's become stitched in the pop culture references and.
Yeah. It's one of those things. You're right that it kind of took over.
Yeah,
it was big where I was from. I remember that, but. I agree. I think Newhart was amazing. So I didn't really get into the Bob Newhart show very much. I saw a few episodes and I liked him, but it mostly was on at times when like I'd go out with my friends or, whatever at Nick and Night. So I just never really got to watch it, although I watched a few. But the ones I saw, I liked. And then I know he had another show afterwards. I think it was called Bob, maybe.
Yes.
But I think it was only like 2 seasons long or something.
Yeah.
But of course, when he came back for Saturday Night Live. I remember he hosted Saturday Night Live in like the mid 90s. And they actually made fun of, or parodied, I should say, that very famous, series finale of Newhart. And I guess I'm not spoiling anything. It's been around. It ended in 1990, so it's been 30 years. But, where he wakes up from a dream. It's like the very last scene, and he wakes up and he's in bed with Suzanne Pleshette, who played his wife on the Bob Newhart show, where he was a psychologist. And he was like, I had the craziest dream. I was married to this blonde, and we ran an inn, and that kind of a thing. It was very like Dallas and Saint Elsewhere kind of an ending. So I guess that kind of thing was very popular in the 80s, But yeah, so they made fun of that on Saturday Night Live. It was, they did a skit and he woke up and he was like, "Oh, I dreamed I hosted Saturday Night Live." And again, Suzanne Pleshette came back and she was like, "Is that still on?"
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's funny because the very last line of Newhart on that finale is his wife tells him, "You should wear more sweaters."
Yeah.
And he spent 8 or 9 seasons or whatever it was wearing sweaters.
Yep.
To circle back to Larry, Daryl, and Daryl, I did not know until I started doing some research for this episode that Daryl and Daryl are both classically trained Shakespearean actors.
Really? I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, fantastic. They're probably most well known for for not speaking.
Right.
Oh man, that's bad.
Well, that's some of the reason they got the role was they needed people that can really emote without speaking.
Yeah. Makes sense.
To give looks and shrugs and eye movements and things like that could that in place of speaking. So.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, and I think I read that their names were actually also Larry and Larry, but they ended up changing it because of what was it? It was something like at school. When they went off to school, so they ended up changing lower to, Daryl and Daryl.
Right.
So, Can you imagine? I mean, I guess George Foreman knows what it's like, but
yeah, George and George Jr. Yeah,
yeah,
Georgia, and that's
I can't
crazy.
imagine that.
Oh, I can't either.
But yeah, I guess I guess it would because my mom, I love my mom, but when she gets mad at us, or she's trying to call us, she always calls like each one of us by our names, so she'll be like Jerry, David, Danny, yep, Jerry,
Mm-hmm.
and so I guess it would be a lot easier then. You could just be like, Larry, come here.
Yeah. I think we all do that. You just got to run through the roster before you hit the right one.
Before you hit the right one, yep. Yeah, I'm pretty sure, because I think I did it a couple of times, and I just had 2 at the time, so I know it's going to be bad once they're all older. But
yeah.
But yeah, so it was 1982 when Newhart came out.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the Bob Newhart show, he was a psychologist, and he ended up doing that. But in Newhart, he was actually like an author, and I think he was actually, he wrote like travel books or something like that. And so he decided to move from New York to Vermont and open an inn. And I guess the inn that they opened is supposed to be like a 200-year-old, inn called the Stratford Inn, something like that. And of course, there's some quirky characters, and you kind of get like a little Stars Hollow, Gilmore Girls kind of, kind of thing. But most of it is just he's kind of down to earth, very mild mannered kind of guy, and so it's just his reactions. I think later on in the series, he actually has a show. Like he has like a TV show, I think, and so then there's producers and stuff like that, but there's always some sort of hijinks going on. And
well, the premise between the Bob Newhart show and Newhart aren't entirely different. From what I remember from the Bob Newhart show, he kind of had his home life where he had all the things going on with his wife, and the Mark Poston character. Mark Poston is also in the Bob Newhart show. He lives with him, but then he also has all his wacky patients at his work. And with Newhart, it's kind of the same thing. He has, his wife and he has George to deal with, but then the patients are kind of replaced with wacky guests at the end. So it's all under one roof instead of back and forth. So, yeah.
Oh man! So the episode, there was only one Christmas episode.
Yes, which is a crying shame that there's.
I would have loved to. You're right. I would have loved to have seen so many more.
Yes,
because this one was so well done, and so when we were about to record, I sent it out on Facebook that, hey, we're going to do this. Send in your comments, and some people were saying, well, I wish they had more and things like that. But someone named Travis actually mentioned that the reason that a lot of the CBS shows didn't have more than 1 or 2 Christmas episodes was because of all the back catalog that CBS actually owned of Christmas specials.
Makes sense.
That kind of thing. And so with that, plus like some of the more modern specials, then they really had to like get with the network early enough to plan, to actually do something. And so in 82, they were able to do it. But, and I think the next year in season 2, they actually did a Thanksgiving episode, but that was pretty much, pretty much
that makes sense. Yeah. Those Christmas specials are spread thin now between all the networks. So
that's right. Yeah. Or you go to like AMC and see them all.
Yeah.
Sorry, Freeform. But this one is called No Room at the Inn, and it's like it's a perfect name.
Yes, it is.
Because there's a great bit that comes back later on that it references. But
a few times.
A few times, yeah.
Yes.
And we'll get into it. But so it starts off, the episode starts off where Bob's wife, Joanna, and the house,
Leslie.
I guess she's the maid, right? The servant or staff.
Housekeeper.
Yeah, that's a better way of saying it. Yeah. And the housekeeper, they're making Christmas cookies when Kirk walks in. And, he has a great bit where he grabs he sees the cookie dough and he grabs it and puts it in his mouth. They're like, those haven't been baked yet. He's like, no, it's fine. She's like, don't you want to spit that out? Spit what out? I'm good.
Still got a big ball in the side of his cheek.
His cheek, like a squirrel or something. And so, of course, he's right away he's like, but I do have to go blow my nose, or I have to sneeze, and so he goes outside and takes a hanky and spits it out and throws it away. I mean, there's a lot of like these little funny bits peppered throughout the whole show, and I mean, I remembered I liked the show, but I hadn't seen it in so long that I'd forgotten that it was like that. I mean, it's just a lot of the little things like that.
Yeah, this is early on in the show.
Yeah, it's the first season. Yeah,
first season, and this isn't the cast I remember. It has Leslie in it and this Kirk guy. But when I think of Newhart, I think of Stephanie and Michael.
Yes,
who come in later on. I think they had a longer run.
They did, yeah.
So it kind of took me a little bit to get my bearings on it, because it's kind of like,
who's that? Yeah,
who's that? But it didn't take very long at all. But yeah.
So the housekeeper,
Leslie.
Yeah, so I think she only lasted like the first season.
Right.
And they introduced her cousin Stephanie, who is hired as her replacement. Kirk stayed on until I believe the end of season 2, and when the premiere of season 3 came on, that's when we discovered that, because Kirk is married and he moved away to Europe. And so it's up to Bob. He asked Bob to sell his cafe. And so he ends up selling it, of course, to Larry and Daryl who after that point became recurring characters. But then, in the third and fourth season, that's also when we start getting Michael. And so then they become, regulars. And you're right. That's the one I remember most.
Yeah.
So at first, when I first saw it, I was like, wait, that's not the same girl, is it? And so I had to look it up. And of course, it's like, nope.
They look very similar.
They do look similar. Yeah. Which makes sense because they're supposed to be cousins.
Right.
But still, I mean, I couldn't tell. I don't know if it's just the way they styled them or if they...
That and the quality on YouTube wasn't...
Well, that's also true.
It was a little fuzzy. I mean, I guess it was just old TV on video trying to transfer to digital format, probably.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see these like remastered or something,
Yeah.
But,
if anybody from CBS is listening and wants to put out a Newhart box set, I'd say go for it.
We know you have at least 2 guaranteed buyers.
Right. It'd be totally worth your while.
Spend these thousands of dollars to do that. Wait, but that first season, so this one we're watching, actually they filmed on videotape, and then it wasn't until season 2 they switched to film. And then that way they got like a more realistic looking or more real looking thing. Yeah, I can imagine that, especially if, because a lot of times I don't know where these things are, that it might be kind of hard to track down and do. But I don't know. I think you're right. I think the quality might have played something to do with it. But
and this opening scene, one thing I learned pretty quick during this opening scene, and that I absolutely love, and that's a complete lost art today, filmed in front of a live audience.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there's something about it.
Having that live audience and wait.
I think it's that energy, there's like a more energy and electricity, and it just kind of feeds you and it drives your performance. And so it's the girls and Kirk, and Kirk's all excited because he's going to be spending Christmas there with the Newharts, but, or not the Newharts, the Loudons, excuse me.
Right.
Because it's Dick and Joanna Loudon. And that's when his girl, Leslie, says that she's going to go home for Christmas. And so all of a sudden he's like distraught.
Right.
And I like Kirk, but he does seem very melodramatic.
Yes, he does.
And he's like, I don't want to spend Christmas with y'all. And like, come on, it'll be fun. He's like, okay, but I'm going to be drunk.
Yeah. He's like, I'll wait in the car. And she's like, I'm flying. He's like, I'll wait in the plane.
Yeah. Like, please let me go with you. But that's when we finally get to see Bob, or I keep calling him Bob. Sorry.
Right.
Dick is the character he's playing. Dick and George, they come in and they're going to go cut down their Christmas tree.
Yes.
And of course we get a nice little gag about, the reason they opened up places like, Guys, which I guess is the name of a Christmas tree lot or store. He's like, so that we don't have to go outside and do it. And so that sets it up for later on.
Right.
But he's got the axe and he's like, we want to have an old fashioned country Vermont Christmas, which Actually, I got to say, before we keep going with the plot, I liked that it was Vermont and an inn because it was a callback to not only Holiday Inn, but White Christmas.
Right.
And so I really enjoyed that,
Mm-hmm.
that little thing where they go to the inn. So I don't know if they meant to do that on purpose or what.
I think, well, the inn, the outside of the inn that everybody sees on TV is an actual inn in Vermont.
Mm.
So just the outside, they've done the inside's a TV studio set.
Yeah.
So I think it just was kind of happenstance. And
gotcha. I could see that.
And then they just took advantage of it since it was there. But yeah, this part of the scene had the old fun old fashioned family Christmas vibes and Christmas Vacation in it.
It sure did. Yeah.
Makes me wonder if some of those writers had this in the back of their head swirling around a little bit.
Could be. It could be.
Yeah.
Oh man. But then we get another little funny bit where he's like, let's see, where did I write down? Where she's, did you confirm that there's going to be the guests? Yep. They're coming, and they're called the Silver Birds. It's like a ski group.
Right.
So, and then, he's like, all right, great. It's going to be great. And then it's like, when your mom's fruitcake arrived, and he's like, did you throw it out? Yep. I was like, all right, great.
That quick too. It was that quick. It was hilarious.
Exactly. It's like, it's funny because a lot of his delivery is it's very slow, and he kind of just says it, but at the same time, there's a pacing that makes it work. So it's not too fast. It's not too slow. It's just,
well, the way they said it, it lets you, it clues you in on like, this is a Christmas tradition that they get the fruitcake from their mom and they direct put it right in the trash immediately, just from the way that exchange is paced. They don't say anything about it, years past, but you just know the way it's said, the way it's put together. This is a Christmas tradition of throwing away the fruitcake as soon as you get it. So,
which reminds me of, I just did an episode with Jack Ford on, Total Christmas Podcast on Pee-wee's, the Pee-wee's Playhouse Christmas special. And there's a gag where every single person gives him a fruitcake for Christmas. And so it kind of reminded me of that. And so it's like, oh man, all these fruitcakes just spinning around. And I haven't had fruitcake in like a long time. Yeah. I don't even remember what it tastes like. I just remember I didn't like it when I was little.
Yeah.
And
well, last year I tried fruitcake for the first time. Because of, all the jokes you overhear about it are always negative. And then I thought, you know what? It can't be that bad, because how are they selling all these fruitcakes if they're just so terrible?
Uh-oh.
And my dad gets a fruitcake every year. There's this one specialty store he buys a fruitcake from every year that he just swears by. And so I tried a little piece of it. And now I've tried fruitcake, and I can move on with my life.
So, gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh man. So the guys leave to get the tree, and then I think we cut to the next scene, and they put up the tree. It's this huge thing. It has to be at least 14 feet.
Yes.
Probably a little bit taller, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And of course the guys are like, oh, it's amazing. It's great. And Joanna's going to be so excited when she sees it. Yes. And so Joanna comes down the stairs, and she's like, what is this? I don't have enough ornaments for that. And she literally has like 2 boxes in her hand.
Right.
One's like a box of like little tiny lights.
Right.
And the other box, I guess, is the ornaments.
She's got like 12 ornaments.
Yeah, exactly. And he's like, oh, it'll look great. You always decorate the tree so nice, back in New York. She's like, well, that was like 2 feet tall and on top of a TV.
Yeah.
There's a lot of little great bits like that.
Yes.
And so then Leslie comes in. She's like, oh, man, you're going to have a hard time decorating that. And she's like, no, I'm not. And she shows her what she's got.
Yeah, it's going to take 5 minutes.
5 minutes, yeah. Oh, man. So she's getting ready to leave. Leslie, she's got her coat on, her bags are packed. George is going to take her. And I think that's when we get the Silverbirds arrive.
Right. They come in.
Yep. And so there's 24 of them. It's like a big skiing club. Mm-hmm. And so their whole reason for going is to, to have a nice ski trip in Vermont for over Christmas time.
Yes.
And so they're there, they check them in, and, she's like, oh, they say, well, you might want to call first because the roads are pretty nasty out there. And
yep.
I mean, I doubt that with this blizzard coming in, this hard snow, I doubt honestly if anything's going to be open. Mm-hmm. So, she takes them up on the offer. She goes to call, and, they're like, well, I hope we can ski. So there's like this whole bit about them maybe being able to ski, but yeah, I just love how, because they don't have that many extras. They're like, oh, the rest of us are outside,
Yeah.
Just like a little throwaway line that I thought was great, but
yeah. There's only about 8 or 10 of the 24 snowbirds at any one time, I think.
Yeah, you're right. It's always like the same few, but there's a bit where, Kirk, he kind of overhears it. Oh, wait, it's snowing. And then when he says, you better call because, it might be, the airport might be closed. And she's like, oh, what does it mean? Or something like that. And Kirk jumps up and he's like, it means a prayer actually works or something.
Yeah.
So he gets like crazy excited and he like grabs her bags and I think runs upstairs or something.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But she goes in with Joanna to call, and of course the airport's closed, no flights, nothing like that. And she's like, well, when do you think the airport's going to be open? And of course you don't hear the other line, but it's just her on the phone. And there's a funny bit where he's like, yes, I know that, when the snowing stops, but when do you think that will be?
Right.
So you can tell the guy is just like a sarcastic guy on the other line. Well, yeah, when the snowing stops. Yeah. Just like ridiculous little, it's great writing. It's snappy, it's funny, but
yeah, it is. It's funny, and it's always coming at you, but it always tells more of the story with as few words as possible.
Yes, I like that. I really like that. There's a lot of like implied things, and so you can figure out what's going on.
Yeah,
they check everybody in. And of course, Leslie not going to be able to go home now. And apparently, Christmas and Christmas Eve was like huge for her family. But because she's not there and because these 24 people were coming to stay, they also didn't have enough rooms. And so they ended up having to rent her room too.
Right.
Rent them out to the skiers. So now she's like, well, what am I going to do? And we get this bit by Kirk where he's like, well, you can always come stay in my place. And if that makes you feel uncomfortable, well, why don't we get married?
Yes. Yeah. And then Bob just is like staring a hole through him.
Yeah.
And he's like, we'll find a room for her.
It's like, man, this guy, not only is he needy, but he's very pushy. Yeah. And desperate. Yeah. But so they have the lights on and the ornaments, and it's barely covering the tree. And they're like, no. But I mean, the whole time, Newhart is just like, it's going to be great. It's, you just have to, we have to be positive here. Like, I'll turn out the lights. You turn and you turn the tree on, and it's terrible. There's like one ornament, like every like 2 or 3 feet. It's so.
Right. So they go to light the tree. They turn off all the lights. They light the tree. There's so few lights on it that you can't even see them.
Oh man! And then I think he even says, well, maybe if we put, maybe if we get some popcorn.
Yeah.
And George has a funny line. George is the like the groundskeeper or the maintenance guy.
Yeah.
And he has a funny line. What does he say?
He says, yeah, everything looks better on a full stomach.
On a full stomach, that's what it was. Yeah.
They're like, no popcorn for the tree.
And then we get all the guests. I mean, they're just bored out of their mind. They can't ski. There's no TVs at the end because they're trying to have they're trying to create that old fashioned, Christmas feel. So, I mean, they don't know what to do.
Right.
So he's going crazy because he doesn't want them to be unhappy. And
they're complaining about, is it at this point that they realize that the ski lodge is closed down or the ski lifts are closed down?
I think so, yeah.
And they're complaining. All the guests are belly aching, and Dick, Bob Newhart's character, goes, everything's going to be fine. You guys go skiing tomorrow, and we'll have a good Christmas. And they go, one of the skiers says, well, what makes you say that? And he goes, for no reason. I'm just making all that up.
Yeah. I don't know. I just made it up. And then that Newhart way. But it's so funny because he's, Dick is really trying to like get everybody into the Christmas spirit. Right. And Joanna's just like, well, hey, it's okay if you're not going to see your family. I mean, George isn't going to see his family. And he's like, no, I don't have any family. She's like, nope, no parents, brothers and sisters. Nope. Aunts and uncles, cousins. Nope. She's like, you mean you're all alone in the world?
Yes. And then George has this slow burn of realization that he starts going, I'm all alone in the world. I'm all alone in the world. And he sits down and he just can't take it anymore. He just realizes he doesn't have any family.
And so then we have Leslie depressed and George depressed. And so Dick is like, well, way to go, Joanna. And you're depressing them. And she's like, well, you're not going to get to see your parents either. And he's like, you're on a roll here. It's like she's doing exactly the opposite of what he wants.
Right.
So funny. And so then we get this great line. One of the guests, still kind of belly aching, he goes, it's going to take a miracle, to have a great Christmas. And then that's when we get all of a sudden a guy walks in and he's like, hey, our car, these roads are closed. We can't go anywhere. We saw this place we came in. Do you have any room? Like, please, my wife and I just need some room. And so he says the titular line, there's no room at the inn. Mm-hmm. And so that's when his wife comes in. It's so good. His wife comes in and she's like, Joe, is there any room? And it turns out she's pregnant.
She's obviously pregnant.
She's very pregnant. Yeah. She's due in 2 weeks. Right. But I love it because the man's name is Joe, like Joseph. Right. Dick, as an innkeeper, is like, there's no room at the inn. He just stares at her and he goes, you're pregnant. She's like, I know.
and you came in here and I told you there's no room in the inn. And Joe's like, yeah, it's kind of close, ain't it?
Yeah, exactly. Everybody's just like, okay, pregnant couple. Joe, no room at the inn. It's Christmas Eve.
Yeah. And then Dick's like, we'll give you our room. And Joanna's like, that's a great idea. And Joe's like, are you sure? And he's like, on behalf of innkeepers everywhere, I think I owe it to you.
It's such a great bit. It is. Innkeepers everywhere. Oh man.
I know we're cracking up, but when I first watched this, I immediately watched it again back to back.
I did too. I did too. Yep. I saw it like 3 times that day.
Yeah.
It's and like, laughed this is so good.
Laughed just as hard each time.
But I love it because then they ask, like, well, do you have any babies' names picked out? And like, well, if it's a boy, Abraham or Isaiah or something like that.
Yeah.
And if it's a girl, Tammy. It's like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they go upstairs. Of course, George is still kind of in his crisis, so I think he goes out.
Yeah, he goes to the den to be by himself.
Yeah. And all the other guests are still just kind of upset that they're not going to get to ski. So I think this is when Kirk says, "Well, I've got ornaments. It's Christmas. Come on. Well, I'll go to the store. I'll go to the shop and get some. Because his restaurant." And Dick's like, "You've got like kitschy things there. They're it's like junk." And he's like, "Well, you have 24, very angry and irritable guests." He's like, yeah, go get your junk.
Go get your junk. Yeah. Yeah. You got cutie dolls and rubber alligators.
That's
or something
what it was.
that. Yeah. Like, go get your junk.
Go get your junk. Yeah. So he comes back and he's got all the stuff and tries to get them all, Oh, no. Well, before he leaves, I love this because he even says, hey, you think this is bad? Try, imagine having Christmas growing up in an orphanage in Nova Scotia.
Right.
And then that's when one of the guests is like, you grew up in an orphanage in Nova Scotia? He's like, I didn't say that. I just said, try to imagine it. So yeah, I love that bit. That made me laugh. So then he goes to get his ornaments or whatever junk, and they're going to turn them into ornaments. And then he comes back. And in the meantime, since no one has anything, I think that's when George says he has some cards.
Yeah, well, Dick goes into the den to cheer George up. He walks in. Dick walks into the den, and George is sitting there listening to the radio. Silent Night's on the radio.
Yep.
And Dick tells him, he says, "Just because you don't have any family doesn't mean you have anybody." Dick says, "You have us." And George is like, "You're right. But do you love me?"
Yeah.
And Dick's like, "I think you're a good guy.
Yeah.
You're a nice guy." So, and there was this real awkward hug there.
Yep.
And then Dick goes, "Excuse me, I need to call my parents." And George is like, "Don't you mean our parents?"
Yeah.
That's when George walks in there and says, and overhears one of the guests saying, "Do they have any games or anything?" And George says,
"There we go.
I have a deck of cards that I use to play solitaire, but that's only going to entertain one person."
Yeah. So the guy just looks at him like he's crazy, like, "Go get it.
Go get the cards."
But then they're also complaining about being hungry.
Right.
And so he's like, Dick is like, "Well, we don't serve dinner." And you can see the anger in their faces.
Yeah.
And so he's like, "Well, we don't serve dinner usually. We'll see if we can go whip something up." So he goes to the kitchen with Joanna, and she's like, "I don't have enough. I don't have enough food for these guys. All I have is your Christmas ham." And he has like this big thing about ham. It's like his favorite meal
right
the whole year, the Christmas ham.
Yeah.
And
she's like, I can dice it. Not my Christmas ham.
Yeah. It's like, well, there are people out there. He's like, it's Christmas. I don't care about those people.
Right.
That's when I think Leslie comes in and says, "Well, the pregnant couple are asking if there's anything to eat." And so he's like, "All right, fine. Dice my ham."
Right.
And so she's like, "I'll go crack like 7 dozen eggs and, make an omelet, make Christmas omelets or something for them."
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Ham omelets.
Oh man. Yeah, I love that part. Not my Christmas ham.
Yeah.
It's so good. So she's doing that. He gets the cards. And this is when Kirk comes back with all his stuff.
Right. He comes back with
so he tries to cheer everybody up.
Yep. They're hanging crabs and alligators and mini flashlights
and postcards too.
And postcards on the Christmas tree.
Yep.
And Dick walks over and says, "Well, I think lobsters are more festive or more holiday or whatever he says. I think lobsters are more seasonal for Christmas or something like that. But if all we got's crabs, I guess
it's so good.
Yeah.
I love the writing here. And I mean, he even brought like little mini flashlights to light the tree. Like he really did think of everything.
Yeah.
And it's funny because he goes to, the guys are all complaining like, yeah, whatever. He's like, "Hey, I got my girl's here. I'm happy. You're not ruining this for me."
Right.
It's like, come decorate this tree.
Right.
So they're all, they're decorating the tree. It's kind of boring. And then, they're trying to get everybody into the spirit. And that's when we get the pregnant couple, the husband comes down. He's like,
Joe comes down.
Joe comes down. Yeah. He's like, can I talk to you for a second? Think my wife's having her baby.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I thought
you just checked in.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I realized that, but I think
Like,
it's time.
I thought she wasn't due for 2 weeks. He's like, well,
Yeah.
she's trying her best.
Right. And then Dick's like, don't panic. And he turns around and screams, Joanna.
Joanna. Yeah, as loud as he can. Everybody just looks, he's like, nothing to worry about. Everything's
nothing
okay.
to worry about. Yeah.
And then he has like one of my favorite lines of the whole special.
Definitely mine too. I know which line.
Where he looks at her and he's like, you're the woman. What do we do?
Yeah, right. Right.
It's like, oh man.
I love that because right before that, he's, she's kind of worked up after listening to this, and he goes, "Just calm down, everything's gonna be all right." And she takes a big deep breath and she settles down, and he goes, "Okay, now you're the woman. What do we do?"
And she's like, "Well, you call a doctor."
He's like, "I can't call a doctor," and then she's like, "Then you have to deliver it." And
I think Joe even says, "Can you do that?"
Yeah. And he's like, "No, I can't do that."
Yeah, no, I can't. So he turns around and is like, this might be a weird question. He starts asking the guests, but are any of you doctors? And every single one of them raises their hand.
They all raise their hand.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he's like, what? They're like, yeah, it's a doctor's ski club. So he tells them the story. We have a lady that, was pregnant, about to deliver, and they all kind of race upstairs, I think.
Yeah, they go.
They're like, finally, something to do.
Yeah, something to do. So was supposed to be 24 doctors try to make it upstairs at once, and there's this big, and it's pretty funny watching them all get up the stairs as fast as they can.
Oh man, can you imagine being in that room? Mm-hmm. That would be awful.
Yeah.
So then it's like the main characters downstairs waiting for everything to happen. And I think they even say it's like 4 a.m. at this point. So she's been in labor for a while.
A few hours time jump, probably.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And this is when Kirk does a card trick.
Right.
It's like he tells him to pick a card, and then he grabs the card, but he really doesn't do anything with it. He just pretends like he's shuffling it. Right. And then he just takes it out and, puts it down.
He has him tell him what card it is, and I think he just looks at the bottom of the cards and pulls it out.
Yeah, I think you're right.
and Dick's like, "That's the stupidest card trick I ever seen." And Kirk's like, "It's the only one I know." And George is like, "I want to see that again."
Yeah. He can't believe it. It's like, wow. Oh man, it's a good bit.
Yeah, it is.
But I believe this is when Joe comes down and says, the baby's fine. She's healthy. It's a Tammy. So in other words, it's a girl. Mm-hmm. And, I just wanted to thank you again for everything you've done. I wish I had cigars. And of course, Kirk's like, I have cigars. And he's like, no, you've already done enough. And Kirk's like, yes, I have.
Yes, I have. And the Joe's like, yeah, if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't have this, place to stay. We'd been stuck out on the road, and we wouldn't have 24 doctors at our service.
You know what? And there's probably not going to be a bill either.
Right.
Which is nice.
Yeah.
Man, those guys lucked out.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. So he goes back up. He's like, I got to go back to my wife. I'll bring her down when the baby's all cleaned up and ready. I just want to say thank you. So he goes upstairs, and then we get that, it's not the Christmas we thought it would be, but it was still a really memorable, wonderful Christmas.
Right. Mm-hmm. He says, if you're talking about old-fashioned Christmases, this is about as close as you're going to
get. Yep. So let's see. I think after this, when we cut to, I guess it's later on in the night or something, and so she gives him the present. Oh no! First, they light the tree. They light the tree. Yeah, and it actually looks pretty good in the.
And the thing I like about it looks pretty good, but it's not like overdone. It's not like they came in and really glammed it up. I mean, it's still rough, but it's pretty nice.
Yeah, exactly. They literally did it with all the junk that they brought in.
Right.
And so I like that they kept that, and it's a nice shot. And of course, we cut to the next scene where Joanna brings him her present, or his present. He's like, what is it? And she's like, it's a slice of your ham. She saved him a slice, and he has a great line. All I got you was diamond earrings.
Right.
But I also love it because George and Kirk is doing the magic trick.
Right.
Yeah.
Still.
He's like, disregard, and George is still just like shocked. He's like, do that again.
Do it again.
And you can see Kirk just rolling his eyes and throwing his head back. But then this is like the best part. So someone's car, a guy comes in, his car is broken down in the middle of the road. And so he's like, well, let me call you a service. And so he's like, yeah, I need a tow truck for, he's like, what's your name? He's like, Alan Wiseman.
Wiseman.
He's like, my two brothers are waiting for me.
Yes.
And he's on the phone. He just gives him a look like, really?
Yeah. That's like the closing joke too. It's like joke from the beginning to the very end, It's almost every line is its own joke.
Yeah.
It still tells a story.
It's really, really good. I enjoyed this one, and I think this one is probably going to be a part of my Christmas canon.
I was going to say that as well. I will watch this probably multiple times throughout the year. It is just so wildly entertaining.
It is, and it is so good. I mean, the writing is good, the atmosphere is good, because you can tell that they're trying to be Christmassy. They've got that huge, gorgeous tree, and even though it's decorated with junk, I mean, it looks pretty good for what they had. Like if I had been there, I would have really enjoyed it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, this I believe, Jerry, we have uncovered a hidden gem of Christmas specials.
I agree. Yep. I completely 100% agree.
Yeah.
It was great. So yeah, I'm looking forward to watching this again. Yes. I mean, it's so funny.
It is so funny. And the writing is, like we said before, so good on it.
Yeah.
And what was this, 82? It's been nearly 40 years.
Almost 40 years, yeah.
Still just as funny. It's not a dated, I don't remember any kind of dated references in there at all.
No, it was definitely timeless. And
right.
I mean, I know he did the Thanksgiving one, so I want you back to talk about that one. That was
we're just gonna have to do that one because I need to see it now. So.
Yeah, for real, me too. Yeah, I'm gonna probably when we're done here, I'm probably gonna go look it up and, and watch that one.
Yes.
But yeah, so Newhart nominated for 25 Emmys.
They should have won every one of them.
It never won, but yeah, I mean, it was a lot of them, like outstanding writing, supporting actresses, lead actor, sound mixing. I mean, it was all sorts of things, technical and achievement and stuff like that. Also nominated for 6 Golden Globes. I think there was a few others, like lower tier awards that I never heard of that they were also nominated for. But this was really good, and I think I want to go back now and just watch them all if I can.
Yeah, I don't know why this show hasn't been picked up for like Netflix or anything like that, because I think it has a life streaming.
Yeah, for real, I do too. I'd binge the heck out of it, man.
Oh yeah, its rights can't be that expensive. I don't see this big
I doubt it.
Call for Newhart stuff, but yeah, this is one of those shows that I always knew was good, but was never like on the tip of your tongue for like quintessential 80s shows.
Yeah. But
then you think it ran from 82 to 90. That's quite a run.
It's a long time. It was 8 seasons.
Right. That's quite a run.
Mm-hmm.
And to be that long of a run and to be that, rock solid, definitely. I'm kind of glad I kind of stirred up this Newhart interest again in me. I appreciate you letting me come on for this one. So
yeah, for real, it was great. So the actual opening theme was written by Henry Mancini, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah,
because of course he did Santa Claus the movie and some of the others like Pink Panther and Peter Gunn theme, things like that. And so that was like a huge get, I think. Yes. And but a lot of the opening credits are actually outtakes from On Golden Pond. Yeah. And apparently, if you look closely, you can actually see Henry Fonda and Katharine Hepburn in the car.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I tried, but I couldn't make it out. I guess I need a bigger TV.
Yeah, you probably need to.
Yep. Let me talk to my wife and.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll get rejected pretty fast. But so yeah, it was a great show. And I'm glad I'm glad that you wanted to do this one. So thank you.
Yeah. Oh man.
So I have to ask, Todd. I mean, you kind of told me a little bit already about. So I think I know the answer, but what would you say is your happiest memory or moment with this?
Oh, well, with this particular episode, my happy moments have just begun with it because each time I watch it will be a complete joy. But as far as the show and remembering as a kid, my dad had this orange, of course it's the 80s, had this orange recliner.
Nice.
And I could just remember him like kick back, cackling at this show. I'm like, in my mind's eye, I just see myself laying in the floor, watching it, and he just kicked back with, one leg raises up in the air, just cackling at a joke that was made, and I just remember just enjoying Newhart.
Yeah.
Each and every time it was on, and waiting for Daryl to come in.
Yeah, that was the only downside to this episode is I really wanted Larry, Daryl, and Daryl there, but oh well, it's okay. It was great either way. So
to get back to them, I watched a little bit of a documentary that was on YouTube on this, and Larry, Daryl, and Daryl was only supposed to be for one episode, but the live audience's reaction to Larry, Daryl, and Daryl, that joke was so overwhelming that they wrote them into more episodes. And Bob Newhart himself said that if they didn't film that in front of a live studio audience, Larry, Daryl, and Daryl probably just been a one-time appearance.
Wow.
Because they wouldn't have known that the joke had hit that hard.
Right.
And he said every episode they were on, they knew as soon as they walked in the door and got the Larry, this is my brother Daryl, this is my other brother Daryl joke out, it was going to be 3 minutes of applause that they're going to have to wait for. And then each time the three of them left, it was going to be another 3 minutes of applause.
Wow.
Before they could move on. So, but thanks to the filming in front of the live studio audience, we have plenty of Larry, this is my brother Daryl, this is my other brother Daryl.
And I think that's got to be my happiest moment because I remember always saying that with my family and just, I'm Larry, this is my brother Daryl, this is my other brother Daryl. I mean, I didn't do it justice, but it's so funny even now, and I just you can see them with like the little beanies and hats on, big old coats, and I mean it's just. Yeah, it's gold. And so I remember always walking around doing that with my parents. But you're right. I also remember, my parents would be on the couch and I think my brothers and I would be on like a colcha, Spanish there, like a comforter or a blanket kind of thrown on the floor. And we'd just kind of be sitting there and we'd watch it and we'd laugh at the stuff we got. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good times. But now we come to my favorite part of the show, which is a little segment I like to call Gag Me with the Spoon.
Mm-hmm.
So again, as you know, this is where we do our best impressions of our least favorite moments, which was very hard for this one.
This was very hard. In fact, when I watched it through, I'm thinking, we can't skip this part of the Totally Red Christmas. It's a staple, but I had a hard time finding something. So I just kind of chose a line that just didn't quite land well with me.
I gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. Kirk, I think, out of all of them, I think Kirk had the most annoying lines,
right?
Which were super funny,
right?
Context, but when you just say it, it kind of got to me. But since you already have a sticker, I'll figure something out and maybe bragging rights. I don't know, but we'll leave it up to the listeners to vote.
There you go.
And I'll let you go first. Just kind of set up the scene.
All right. It's towards the beginning. It's the opening scene. Kirk just found out Leslie was going home for the holidays, and he is very upset, disgruntled. And Dick and George are going to go cut a Christmas tree down. And Dick asks Kirk if he wants to come with him. And Kirk says, yeah, if we can stop and buy some cheap wine and some cigarettes. And then Leslie says, "You don't smoke." I do now.
I love it because then Dick goes, I take it you broke the news to him about leaving.
Right.
So mine is also Kirk. And it's after they've gotten the tree, they've just gotten back. So there was like a cut, and so now it's right there. They're just back, and they're putting up the tree, and Kirk's sitting on the couch, and he's smoking, and he goes, "Christmas is really stupid."
That was my second choice.
Gotcha. It's like, oh man.
Yeah.
But I get it. He was upset.
Yes.
He wasn't going to get to spend the holiday with his girl. But man, I mean, dude was desperate.
Yeah. Very much so.
Yeah. Oh man. So, G.I. Joe, they taught us that knowing is half the battle. So what would you say is the other half?
The other half of the battle is when your wife says she has to dice the ham, let her dice the ham.
Yeah, yep. It's a good one. Mine is so if knowing is half the battle, the other half is always making sure that your ski club guests for your inn are doctors in case of a medical emergency. So yeah, just always make sure you have a doctor on hand. Yeah. Todd, it's always so much fun talking with you.
Oh yeah,
especially when we can talk about great Christmas things like this.
Oh yeah.
So tell me about your show. Tell me about Christmas Clatter.
Well, Christmas Clatter is the podcast that celebrates everything that makes Christmas special. We are rolling into October, and I will be starting weekly episodes, releasing every Tuesday.
Nice.
And we're going to cover all kinds of things from movies to music to gifts. I have a couple of people that wrote Christmas books coming out this year. Even a writer and director of a independent Christmas movie is going to come on to discuss that film. All kinds of great stuff lined up for Christmas Clatter through the Burr months. Will be weekly with bonus episodes. And if it keeps rolling like it is, I might be able to announce that we'll be twice a week through Christmas, but I can't guarantee that yet because we have all kinds of good stuff lined up. And then there'll be something for everybody. Just so come join us, ChristmasClatterPodcast.com or Christmas Clatter at all the social medias and at ClatterPod on Twitter.
Right on. Yeah, if you haven't heard it, you need to tune in. It's so much fun. It gives you all the warm fuzzies about Christmas, and I mean, it's great. It's a good time. Of course, I do have to say my favorite is the recast miscast segment of his.
We have a big Christmas classic recast miscast coming.
Ooh.
What I would consider a top 3 Christmas movie.
Oh my!
And I'm recasting everybody in the movie.
Awesome.
And
very intriguing.
Yes. Yeah.
I love it. All right, maybe off camera I'll get you to give me a little hint or something. But
I'll do that.
Yeah, it's great. So yeah, definitely check it out. But on that note, I think I will end it by saying this may not have been exactly what we planned, but when you talk about authentic old-fashioned Christmas, this is about as close as you're going to get. So check us out on our social media pages, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you're like Larry, his brother Daryl, and his other brother Daryl, leave us a review on iTunes. Not only does it help us reach more people, but you also get a free sticker. Now, don't forget to vote. Later, dudes.